Michael, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. You finally got in. I've just
Yeah,
been answering
not,
some
you're not the only one
questions.
that's a grandma.
Pardon?
I said you're not the only one that's a grandma with TikTok.
I'm still trying to figure out all these
Oh,
buttons. Well, you're in now. Welcome. And hello
yes,
to all your
thank you.
followers as well.
Yeah, everybody who follows me, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. So, I'm gonna tell you how we ended up here for everybody who's trying to get caught up on why we're doing a live together. So, obviously, on my show, I run a page dedicated to not just high value men, but high quality men. So this is men who obviously make money, but these are also marriage minded men who understand the value in being able to provide traditional value to a woman. A lot of times when the conversation of value comes up, we're trying to self define what value is to us, but it should be what's valuable to our consumer, which is the opposite sex, right? So if you look at any survey, uh, the overwhelming consensus is with women, money does matter, but they're also looking for men who take pride in being able to providing a lifestyle, providing security and safety in all the different layers of what those things mean, because security and safety don't only fall under the context of money. And so she liked one of my posts or one of my videos, and I went and investigated, and I was like, man, she is on the right track, not just talking about the realities of hypergamy, but also incentivizing women to exercise real femininity and show that there's power in that. Women have a whole lot more power than what they're allowing themselves to use with femininity. And so as soon as I saw what her page was about, I think I went through maybe 90% of the videos, and I said, let me reach out to this young lady, let some of my viewers hear what she has to say, and vice versa. I wanted to talk to her more, and so here we are. She obliged, and although we have an 8-hour time difference between the two of us, we managed to make it happen
We still
uh,
made it.
in the middle of our busy day. So thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. Do you want to tell everybody a bit more about yourself, who you are, and vice versa?
Yeah. So my page name is obviously under Michael Diamond. It is an alias. Diamond is not my last name, but a lot of people ask. Um, but yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, New York originally. One of two kids. I was raised by a single mother. I am a United States Marine Corps veteran, and when I left the Marine Corps, I ventured into different kinds of employment and realized it just wasn't for me. And so after divorce and many other trials, I figured out working for myself was the best way to go. And so here I am now in a much different place in life. And as they say, the view is different from the top. So I'm in a place now where I do have options, and I want the best for myself. I want the best for my daughters. And whatever woman decides to be in my life, I want her to have the best as well, which I do have a woman. I heard somebody ask you if you were single. I am not single. But I do care about having the best around me, and the highest quality people, the highest
Hmm.
quality experiences and opportunities. And I think all of us should strive to have the same things. Success means different things to different people, but we should definitely be striving to not just have the best, but join forces with the best so we can have the best outcomes for ourselves.
Okay, amazing. Do I need to talk
And
about
for my
myself?
viewers, can you please give a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Jay. I'm from London. Um, I basically work for myself as a social media manager, working with different brands. And I started this platform, Miss Hyperglam, about a year ago. I was following loads of places myself, like accounts myself, to do with femininity. I was kind of shying away from more of like just the kind of just get his money sort of aspect. I wanted to focus more on like self-development um, from a femininity standpoint. And just hypergamy, like the whole idea of dating up. And I really enjoyed the concept I was consuming. I thought it was very positive, and I felt like it helped me kind of take a look at myself and unlearn some of the things that I felt was holding me back. Because I remember saying to you earlier, I've always had this you know, my feminine energy has always had a hold on me, but society and friends and all this kind of stuff always made me feel like I had to fight against that. And I really just wanted to embrace that feeling inside, because I felt like when I was doing that, I was making better moves in life, connecting with better people. So I wanted to keep that up by consuming that content. And I love the content so much, but I felt like I had so many of my own thoughts and my own experiences that I've learned from that I could add to that. Because I know that there are a lot of women like me, especially women of color, who are in the position that I once was, and maybe don't necessarily know how to go about it. It's not something that all our mothers are sitting home teaching us from a young age or anything like that. So I wanted to be able to contribute to that.
Right. And you actually touched on something that I just did a video on recently, which is, we're not breaking new ground here. The things that we're talking about are traditional, right? Since the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, um, a woman's financial contribution has never really been something that was on the table. And when
And that was
I
not how I was raised either.
yeah, and it's not to say that I don't want a woman with brains or, high value men don't want intelligent women, because your input and your feedback does help guide the ship. However, when the conversation of, like I've been in some comment threads for a Kevin Samuels page, and the guys are like, if I cook and I clean myself and I hire prostitutes, then what do I need a woman for? What does she bring to the table? And it's like they want to hear money. I want a woman that makes money. And I feel the same way you feel about it. If a woman comes into the situation exalting how much she can do for herself, first of all, it turns off that instinct for a man to want to take care of you. That's the first thing. Men are very simple. And men, I think good quality men, and when I say men, I want to make sure I clarify something before I continue with that point. When I say men, I'm not talking about the bottom of the barrel scummy guy that, he's hanging out on the corner, or he's in bars every night, the guy who's in terrible debt or whatever, or the guy that's only looking for sex. I think we should the air right now and just say, if a man and a woman meet and they go on a date, obviously sex is an expectation for both parties, but it's not something that has to be highlighted in the beginning. All right. So when I talk about men, I'm talking about men who have character, men who have that instinctual desire to want to provide and protect for a woman. We can talk about all the things that Black women do wrong today, but at the baseline of it all, there has to be a desire to want to be with women. We don't want to get caught up in this habit of just, taking a crap on the opposite sex and not highlighting the reasons why we need them. And
Yeah.
you said a minute ago that you always had the feminine bug in you, but you felt like you had to conform with what society told you was most acceptable. And I just did a video on this recently. I just posted it to my YouTube yesterday, so you guys go take a look at it. We all come into it wanting to do one thing, but then we're afraid of the judgments or the criticisms that we're going to get from other people who don't have the same views. So a man will want to take a woman out on a date, and he'll want to take her to a nice restaurant or take her somewhere nice or buy her some things. And he'll say, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be labeled a simp. So not
Mm.
only am I not going to come out of pocket for her, but I'm not going to be a gentleman at all. I'm not going to
At all.
give anything, right? And that's not being a simp. That's not being a simp. A simp is a guy who, regardless of how poorly he's being treated, how much effort he puts in and it's not being reciprocated, how aggressive or mean that woman is to him, he continues to give and give and give his time, his money, his energy, right? No man should just sit around and be disrespected, all right? Don't give and it's a one-way street and you're not receiving the sensual, soft, uh, non-compassionate, argumentative, explosive, behavior from a woman. I would never tell any man to accept that. The way I am as a man and what I provide for the woman in my life, I do that because that is my instinct. She doesn't really have to earn it, right? So we have to get out of the misconception that a woman has to earn basic male decency. And opposably, women also have to stop thinking that men have to earn basic female decency. There's things that we have to bring to the table up front. And at the end of the day, I feel like most people are just scared to invest too much because we see too much pain out there. Men want to be nice. Men want to be kind. Men want to shower a woman and adorn her with love and affection and gifting, but they're afraid to invest too much and a woman doesn't reciprocate. Women are afraid to be
Hmm.
soft and feminine for a man because they feel like it's not going to get reciprocated in the way that they want, so they choose not to. And then lie to themselves and say, I didn't want to give it to him anyway. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's my real message. You know what I mean? We gotta there was a time when the only thing we knew was what was happening locally to us, right? Before the news, before social media, before we can know about, the leftover woman in China because they haven't been married by the age of 30, or, the shortage of men versus women in other parts of the country. Before we knew about everybody else's problems, the only thing we knew was what was happening in our neighborhood or in our subsect of a city, right? So if you go back to the 40s and 50s, every woman in the neighborhood knew who hardworking Larry was. Larry, the guy who was a mechanic, who was a welder, he knew how to make money. He was a hard worker. He never, had problems with a car being repossessed or anything like that. All the women knew who that man was. He was the apex of that area. And then they knew all the men that fell in line under that because it was only a couple of hundred people that they were aware of. If there was a social gathering of some kind, all the men knew what woman was going to bring the best pie, what woman was the best at baking and cooking, what woman dressed the
Sorry, hold
best.
on, Mike. I just got someone I just need to block because we're not having no bad energy in here.
That's fine.
Just give me.
Um, but we knew who the best cook, who the most feminine, who the prettiest was. Nobody had to talk about it. All the men talked about that woman, and they all knew the women that fell in line after her. All of the men were trying to get the best woman in their local community. All of the women were
Okay.
going for the same high value man. And so now we have so much to digest, so much information that people are afraid to give too much of themselves in fear that it will be, spit back in their face. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
because I agree. I totally agree. I think there's just so much going on today. Sorry, hold on. There's just so much going on today, in terms of like dating culture now and social media. So I feel like it is kind of warranted for people to feel apprehensive. And
Yeah.
that's why I really try and make lots of content like talking about vetting, like how to vet men. Like I made one about online dating, like what you're kind of should be looking for in terms of, because online dating is like the new thing, during lockdown everybody's been meeting online, even
Correct.
before lockdown it's just a lot more accessible for everybody who's now out there. There's so many more opportunities. Everybody's busy out there living life and trying to get to the bag. And
Mm-hmm.
online dating, I did a post about vetting on there, what to do before you even swipe left or right, like what you're looking for visually and also how you're being approached. So I think that the vulnerability comes when you've vetted properly and you've taken the time to kind of figure out whether you guys kind of like align, you kind of know what you're looking for before you've even actually met. um so I wanted to know, like, for a man like you, what's your vetting process when you're,
I'm so
seeking
glad
out
you asked. I'm
the
so glad
fairest
you
lady in
asked
the
because I wanted
land?
to I wanted to give a contrast of all of the things a woman is looking for in online dating versus a man. So with a woman, you're actually digesting whatever he puts in the bio, if he even leaves the bio, right? You're looking
Hmm.
for if he's in pictures by himself or if he's with other people. And those other people, how do they look? How do they carry themselves? Your your process is a lot more in depth than what a man's is because for a man, we swipe when she's pretty. Now, yes, the bio matters, but the only thing I'm looking for is red flags. Like, I personally don't want a woman that smokes a bunch of weed, right? So if she's like 420 friendly, I'm probably not going to swipe for somebody like that. Or, I'm not looking for a serious relationship. I'm not going to swipe for her. I don't know about you, but I don't date just idly. I want a wife. I am husband minded. So if I initiate a first date at all, it's going to be because in her bio, she made it seem somewhat like she is prepared to be somebody's wife one day, right? Now, with that piece of information, I'll swipe. It's really just that. Is she pretty? Does she not
Hmm.
smoke weed? And does she look like she wants a real relationship? And that's really slim. And I don't look for anything else because women in general decide what level of respect or treatment or whatever it is based on what the man shows them. So she could have experienced, 10 different men last year, and none of them were like me. And the woman that she decides to show me will be something different than what she showed all of those other guys. And so I really don't care too much about any of the other stuff because I plan on showing her something that is worth humbling yourself. That's worth being peaceful with me. That's worth, not being any of the bad things you might have been in a previous relationship. And again, this is not something that she has to earn. This is in my nature anyway. I'm a competitive man, and I think that is a key component in high value men being competitive, understanding that there are other men in the race and that I am constantly trying to be ahead of that pack. And so the more unattainable the woman seems, right, because of her standards, because of her looks, that the more attractive that is for me. You know what I mean? I feel like if I get a woman like that, then that leads to a more secure relationship because not any man walking down the street can get her attention. So, I met my girlfriend online, and when we matched, it was actually my birthday weekend, and I was busy doing other things. I had actually rented a Ferrari for the weekend, and I had my buddy come down from out of town. And we drove around, was having a good time, so I couldn't really get back to her when I wanted to. But when we finally did start talking, we spoke just on exclusively for about a week before we actually went out and met. And our first date was one from the movies because she showed me in our conversation that she had the values that I was looking for, right? Not perfect, and I'm not perfect, but there was enough to work with there.
Did you? Did you
I didn't ask what for the date?
Did you ask what she brought to the table in that conversation, or you was
No.
able to grasp it from her attitude
Well,
and
no.
the conversation?
In a lot of ways, what a woman has to bring to the table, I can see it when I look at her, right? Like I'm a man who is involved in different kinds of business, local politics, and things like that. And so I need a woman like my girlfriend who, when I take her to events, if we go to a fundraiser or something like that, and she's charming the room or whatever it is, when I go back around that group of people without her, I need all of them to say, yo, who the woman you were with? She was so charming. She represented you well. Like I need a woman like that. And I can see that with a picture and a couple of sentences that come out of your mouth. I like a woman who is well spoken. I like a woman who knows how to repress negativity. You know what I mean? Like it's very simple for a woman. Like the things that high value men are looking for from women are absolutely free. It costs you nothing but a little bit of just, you know what I mean? Just a little bit. Now, a high value man, our love is transactional. We get what we give. If I can't provide certain things, then I won't get certain things. I'm not saying that it's fair, and I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that it is what it is. And I don't like to get caught up in this conversation of what it should be or what my, ideal world would be. The way it is women give what they feel like they can get from a man. So a man just has to kind of buckle down and understand that you're going to have to submit first, if that makes sense, right? In a way, you have to submit first as far as picking up a bill on a first date. Yeah. Picking up a bill on a first date, opening and closing doors and pulling out chairs and giving compliments, bringing flowers. On me and my girlfriend's first date, I brought 3 dozen roses. For people that don't know, 3 dozen roses is over $300 worth of roses, all right? And this was on the first date. But I have daughters. And when my daughters are looking for husbands one day, I'm going to say, these are things you're looking for if a man is serious. If he can show sacrifice up front, if he can show, compassion and the sense of up front, then that's quality. You know what I mean? It's either quality or he's a really good game player. But I don't think any man, money or not, is going to go to the extent that he did when that he doesn't really have intentions for.
I agree. I definitely agree. Well, I just wanted to propose some questions to you. Someone just said, what are your opinions on dating to marry?
I think that's the only thing that's really dating. If you if you're doing anything else, it's not called dating. You know, like we equate dating with being single and going out and having fun. If you're going out and having fun, that's not dating. Dating is initiating the courting process.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not what you're doing, and you're not looking to lead to having a girlfriend and making her your fiance and eventually your wife, then that's not dating. Like for me, I treat a relationship like a report card in school. All of the students start with an A and you have to earn an F, right? And I think that's the opposite of what a lot of people do. A lot of people come into it thinking they have an F and they have to prove to me that they're an A. So if you come in and you're beautiful and you're well spoken and you're polite, right? The waiter comes and you're smiling, you're being pleasant, you're not treating them like you're better than them, things like that. If I can see those kind of characteristics, I'm thinking to myself, I can marry a woman that looks and behaves this way. After we've
Mm-hmm.
been, dating for a little while, and you decide to cook me the time, and the meal is great. I tell myself, I can marry a woman that looks this way, acts this way, and cooks this way. The minute you do something that makes me feel like I can't marry a woman like this, then that's when things get shaky. You know what I mean? So as long as I'm seeing wifey, we're moving in that direction. The minute I see that we're not doing that anymore, then I won't say that I'm upset, but I become less interested, less and less interested. And eventually I will let it go. I'm not one that's gonna waste my time.
And I have one more question. It was further up. Hold on, let me try and find it. Someone said, "Does Michael agree with Kevin Samuels?" Obviously, you knew this question was going to come up. People just want to know if you are in agreement with what are your thoughts on Kevin Samuel.
So on my page, I say a lot. I agree with 98, 99% of what Kevin Samuels talks about. You can't lie with numbers, right? 51% of marriages are ending in divorce. Only 1 in 4 Black women in America are getting married at all. 55% of Black men are married. Now, they're not marrying Black women. Obviously, if only 1 in 4 Black women are getting married. So we have to ask ourselves why, right? And when I say the things that I say about hypergamy, high value men, and high value women, that doesn't change my mind about how we got to where we are. And I do feel like a lot of that sits in the hands of women. Because when it comes to the masses, um, there really is not a lot of change as far as traditional value when it comes to men. Men still are expected to pay on dates. Men are still expected to be providers and make money and all of those things. But a man is not allowed to say, "Can you cook for me?" Like the minute you talk about domestic skills or emotional skills, a lot of modern women, they turn the page on you and, they say, well, what are we back in the 50s or, whatever. They accuse you of being misogynistic just because you have traditional desires to go along with your traditional values. And so, yes, I do agree with Kevin Samuels on most of what he says. The only thing that I really clash with him on is that a high value man uh, is inevitably going to cheat and entitled to cheat. I don't agree with that because to so when I talked about this on my YouTube show, a lot of men, Kevin Samuels soldiers, were in my comment section, and they said that I'm lying to the women. All rich men cheat, all of these things. But here's the thing: if an agreement to an open marriage is established, that's not cheating. That's going along the bounds that you and your wife have set. Which, if you have to be in an open marriage, then why get married in the first place? Um, but when you talk about having a woman believe that you are being faithful and you're not, then that is cheating. And I don't promote poor character, lying, cheating, low integrity. These are not characteristics of high value, high quality people. Even in business, and I will ask any man that's in business, if you're at a business lunch with a married colleague and the first time you met him, he was with his wife and he's loving all over and they seem like a great couple. It gave him credibility that he could be so good to his wife. Now, if you go to dinner with him another time and his wife is not there, and you see him catcalling every woman that walks by or walks in with another woman, you're going to question his ability to be loyal to you in business, right? Even men will look down on other men who cheat in the right environments, right? But ethical, I want ethical, forthright men around me. My best friend, who also works in politics and works in the business that I work in, he's married with 7 kids. His wife doesn't have to work. She is happy. She helps him with his business in a lot of ways, right? Like they keep everything in house. And the balance that they have allows them to go to, great vacations, great dinners, do all of that stuff. And when we're by ourselves, his song doesn't change. You know what I mean? He loves his wife. If he didn't, I would not be able to be around him, So if you're single, do your thing. Like, I'm not saying make your money and then just wall yourself up. If you're a single person, you're out there having fun, play the field, do your thing. I promote that. Have a good time. But if you find somebody who you feel like putting a ring on it for, hang it up. Hang it up, unless you guys agree on something else. But I just don't believe in, deceiving a woman and having her believe, yes, you're the only one I'm with, you're the only one I'm dealing with. And then as soon as I leave, I'm, getting it in with every other kind of woman out there. I just think it's unfair.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think that was it for the questions. Is there anything you want to lead with? Because I feel like I'm
Yes,
doing what
yes,
I'm
yes.
leading.
So I had a conversation with some buddies this morning, and I told them I was doing this live with you, and naturally the conversation just erupted into something else because this is such a touchy topic. So these guys believe that a woman who starts her vetting process with how much money he has is only with you for the money, and if you lose the money, then you lose the woman. Um, how do you explain that process? Like if you find a man who is high value and he does meet the metric of making the dollar amount that you feel is necessary, if he runs into hard times, how do you handle that as a feminine woman?
Um, well, on my channel, I always say that money is a starting point, the same way that men, all you need to see is a pretty face and you're going to explore that option is the same way as a woman. I think that I want to see financial stability and then I will explore the option. I think that what the propaganda that people like to say is, oh well, why are you only going from rich men, or they're so abusive, they're this that, and people on my channel know that's not true. I just think that you're better off starting from the financial stability pool and then find character and values that align with you in that pool. I don't support not having that as a starting ground, but I don't think that the pinnacle. It might be the pinnacle for some women, but that's not how I view relationships. But yes, I'm depending on what quota I need him to meet before I then explore the option. I do place financial stability at the top, if not joint second with character, because I think what a lot of people these days, we live in a culture of just immediate gratification. No one is thinking about the future. Nobody's thinking about, well, what happens, down the line when I'm having kids and all these kind of things. Women deal with a lot. It's not just push a baby out and it's done. There's all these other things that go into it: separation anxiety, postpartum, all these different things that need to take into consideration. Sickness, what if, what happens in that dynamic? So I really think it is important to make sure that you are, looking for a man who is at the very least financially stable. How financially stable, that's up to you to decide and what's right for you. I think in terms of falling on hard times, I get this question all the time, this like hypothetical question, and I
Yeah.
don't really know how to answer that because I've honestly never been in that situation. So I don't want to be like, well, if this happened, this is what I'm going to do. Because I get posed this question all the time of what are you going to do in this situation? Obviously, I'm not going to, if the situation ever happens, I'm not going to be like, well, that's it. The next day,
Right.
if you don't put all that money back in, get all that money back into the account by tomorrow, I'm gone. I'm sure it's not going to go down like that. I'm sure
Right.
I'm going to have to things into consideration, assessment. People always think it's either one or the other. If you are a feminine woman, you hate feminists. If you only date
Yeah.
financial stable men, you're going to leave him as soon as it's not as black and white as people like to think. So I think it's just a
Right.
play by play situation. Obviously, I'm going to take a lot of things into consideration. It's not just going to be about the fact that he hasn't got the money. Has he got the motivation to get back on the horse? Is it a case where I'm now picking up the slack for months and months and months, and I'm now doing all of these things on top of the roles that he wants me to do? Because let's be honest, even in 50-50 relationships, men aren't going to be splitting the household things down the middle like that. You're both going to
Right.
be coming home from work tired. He's going to be there with beer bottles on the PlayStation, and you're going to have to clean all of that up. Then he's going to expect to cook for you. Then he's going to expect a whole night of passion.
Right.
It's all
Right.
it's all
Yeah.
subjective. So I
Mm.
think, I
You
think money is a starting point. And I think that in terms of, if things don't last, hopefully they don't, because hopefully I've picked correctly and that's just not going to happen. He's not going to, put himself in that situation. But if it
Mhm.
does happen, then we'll see what the situation is when we get there.
You know what? You actually just said something perfectly. You said if you fall on hard times, you're looking for if he has the motivation to get back on his feet. And that brings me to a very important point, which is it's not the money specifically that hypergamous women are looking for. Like it's not the greenback itself that they're happy with. The thing that impresses these women about men who are financially stable is the personality type, the level of drive, the level of stick to itness that that man has to have to achieve that level of success. It makes them feel confident that if things do fall apart, he built it once, so he can build it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes into that sense of security. The question of where's the love in all of this comes up often in my comment section. Like, well, where's the love? It just sounds like it's all about money. It's so superficial. There are things and I say marriages because everything that I deal in leads to marriage. I feel like a lot of the power that Black people specifically miss out on in this country is because we don't have cohesive Black families. We don't have it. And so there are things that matter in marriage more than love. We all know divorced people who are still in love with each other, but they can't make it work because the love is not enough. Excuse me, the love is not enough. To men, I feel that more than love, respect matters more than love.
I
If
agree.
yes, so what that looks like is that feminine woman who he can take care of saying, I appreciate what you do for me. Your role in my life has put me on the track that I want to be on. I'm able to handle these other things or this other business that I'm starting because of your aid in my life, right? Those kinds of things feed a man's soul. That kind of respect builds his confidence, builds his drive even more. Like I was able to do a lot on my own without a woman, but having a woman who needs me and respects me gives me that little extra push. And
Mm-hmm.
any high value man who has a supportive woman in his life will tell you that support is fuel like no other when it's coming from you. Now, just like men have something that matter more than love, women do too, and that is security, right? And like I got to do that too. And like I said, security is not just financial security. There's a reason why small women still want men over 6 feet tall. Like if you ask most women, what is your ideal man? They will usually say they want a man over 6 feet tall, even if they're 4'11". Everybody's taller than you, but the point of it is they feel physically secure with a bigger man, right? They feel like when they're walking down the street, it's going to be a lot harder to get to her because he's there. And she wants to feel like that about every aspect of her life. So the emotional security and knowing that she has a man who has options, but has shown time and time again that he is committed to her. that emotional security goes a long way. And then, of course, financial security, or at least knowing that she has a man who, things get hard, he has a track record of showing that he can make things happen, right? Security for a woman and respect for a man are more important than love, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, I have to agree. I have to agree. I just wish men would be more, you know, and other men will be, we like to call them dusties in this community.
Oh, I know.
Are just more, you know, knowledgeable of the fact that it does not mean that we're there to literally rinse you and suck you dry. It's because it's a requirement of ours, and men and women want different things from each other. And if you're allowed to want these things, why does what I want any less? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like the percentage, I don't know the exact statistics, but in terms of like men leaving women when they're not physically able or physically up to par with their standards is astronomical. We all know this. If I got into an accident and I had to amputate my legs, how long is he going to stay? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's
Right.
really crazy when men always want to, you know, always want to press this money issue. Well, what if I took this away? Like, what would happen? What if I lost this? What would happen? What would Well, you know, look at all the women who've, you know, gotten sick and had cancer and their husbands have just left them to go with someone
Yeah.
else and had to see it
Yeah.
all online and, you know, had to get over that while they're facing, you know what I mean? And it's everybody deserves to, you know, fulfill like their happiness. Do you know what I mean? But definitely
Mhm.
respect, as you said, and stability on both sides is important. The emotional
Yeah.
stability, the financial stability, and whatever else that comes with it. Yeah.
Yeah. You can love somebody and still cheat on them. But if you respect them, you respect their
Unfortunately.
time,
Yeah.
you respect their effort, you respect their commitment, I don't think you could cheat on somebody that you truly respect. If you cheated,
Mhm.
you didn't respect them. So love is not a pit that you fall into. And it's not the bond that keeps a marriage together. And we have to get over the fairy tale. Like it's not a Disney movie.
A fairy
Love,
tale.
it's not a fairy tale. Love is an action. It's a decision to show a person that there's something special to you. But that doesn't describe your duty to the other person for the remainder of your life. You know, duty is what keeps us all together. And the lack of um, commitment to that duty is what breaks us apart. You know, I was in Kevin Samuels's group. It's not even his. It's a
Ooh,
Kevin
he's in the group
Samuels.
about to beat you
Yo,
up.
look, hey, but no, but the thing is, I agree with everything that they say. I agree with everything that Kevin Samuels says, really, except for the cheating part. But what's happening is there's a
But
lot
what
of
about the
hurt.
delivery? Don't you think that the delivery is off? And I said this earlier. I said that I do agree with with his fundamental points, but and granted, I haven't necessarily sat down and watched a full clip because those little clips of just the complete disrespect is enough for
I
me to.
definitely, I definitely encourage you and every woman who follows you to watch a full 2 hour video. I definitely encourage it because Kevin, Kevin and his delivery is the reason why so many people hear him now. Okay. You've never been a man and thought like a man and tried to convey a point to a woman who doesn't agree with you. So you don't understand the difficulty that most men have with arguing with a woman who can attach every memory she has to a single act. So what I mean by that is the the only time women seem to really stay on point in an argument is if they're talking about a point where he has disappointed her. She can talk about that and that alone without problem. But when he is upset about something she did, usually her first instinct is, well, what about you? What about a year ago when you did this? Or that time I asked you? And she will mold the argument around to where now he's apologizing for something old and she still has to take an accountability for the thing that he brought to her initially. And when Kevin Samuels deals with these women, he uses the acronym. SIGN, it's sign language. They usually resort to shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. So the first time you and I spoke on the phone, we talked about single mothers in the dating market. And none of us can argue, like none of us can argue that it is more difficult. There is more friction dating a woman who has children versus a woman who does not. None of us can argue that. It is not the same level of effort. It's not the same level of freedom to date, right? When you are dating a woman without children, you can say, I got tickets tonight, let's go. You can't do that with a woman with kids, especially if they're younger than a certain age. She has to get a babysitter. She has to do, there's more sacrifice that has to be made on her end. And because there's more sacrifice on the end of a single mother, that means that she is more easily resentful when you don't seem to be putting out the effort that she's putting in. Even effort that as a man, he doesn't even see that she puts in, right? So, and that topic comes up a lot in Kevin Samuels' groups about single mothers. And you'll hear women say it's the same. Men only want young girls because they're creeps, or they want a girl who's young and naive and dumb and all of these things. But again, numbers don't lie. The highest group of college graduates right now, the highest demographic of college graduates in America are young Black women between the ages of 18 and 24. So these are not young, dumb women. The reason why they're a benefit is because, first of all, they don't have 35 years of bad experiences with men hanging on their shoulders. So they're less likely to make you pay for the mistakes of another man. And they're a lot less likely to have children with another man, which I don't think I've ever heard a man say, if I date a woman, she got to pay for my kids like she would pay for her own. But when a woman has kids, she expects that man to financially contribute those children too. And I know that there's going to be one or two women that says, oh, not me, I would never. But in my experience dealing with this topic, the perfect woman is the one I'm talking to directly. She's unlike every other woman out there. She doesn't do anything that the other women do. But the reality is, these women, instead of just putting up to the fact that it is more difficult to date them, which in turn lowers their dating market value, they'll say, well, you don't like your mama and your mama's Black, or you're gay, or whatever, all of the above. They would rather insult him or shame him or make him feel guilty for calling out what it is. And no matter how much logical sense it makes, she'll say, well, whatever, I know I'm right, I know you're wrong, right? So Kevin has to be hard-nosed when he's dealing with this type of woman. Like if you haven't watched a full episode, and this is low-key turning into a Kevin Samuels advertisement, but I encourage women, before you judge how he talks to these women, understand the kind of woman that's calling into that show saying things like, I'll give you one that I love, right? It was one of my favorites. There was a woman who was 22 years old. She went to a very good college, and she was about to graduate in this spring. And she's calling and complaining about her boyfriend. And she says, I pay for everything. I'm the provider. He doesn't contribute. He works a dead-end job, and he doesn't aspire to be anything greater. And she said, had all these terrible things to say about him. And Kevin said, well, how long have you been with this guy? And she said, 3 years. And he said, well, has this guy grown at all since day one? And she says, no. He's like, okay, so in the last 3 years, the way he is right now is exactly what he was on day one, but you chose to go forward with him. Why? And she couldn't answer the question. Before he even spoke about it, I knew what the answer was, because when she first met him, she was a freshman in college. Now that she's about to graduate, now she sees herself as a woman with a degree. And now, because women only seem to date men who do what they do or better, if she has a degree, now a degree is a part of the barometer of how much she should respect that man. In the grand scheme of things, she wasn't even paying for everything. She's on her dad's allowance. Her dad pays for her to go to school. Her dad gives her a weekly allowance, and she uses her allowance money to help pay for that man. So who's really living life for real? That man. He's working on his own. He has his own apartment. He has his own stuff. That girl doesn't own anything. But if you let her tell it, she's high value, right? So Kevin has to talk to her sternly. Hey, snap out of it. You don't earn money. You don't go to a job. You're a student. That man who you're judging has been working for 3 years. You have not been working for money, right? So because she elevated, now she's elevating her expectations for that guy, and she can't even see that. Kevin had to set that straight. Now, I will tell you the drawback of Kevin's show. And it's not Kevin. It's the type of men who follow him. It's that comment section. Because I'm convinced at this point that none of those guys actually like women anymore. And this is not me calling them gay. I'm convinced that they don't like women anymore. I saw a post yesterday and it said, hey, why do Black women expect to get so much up front? And my response to that was, well, what do Black women expect up front that other races don't expect up front? And nobody can answer. That group is not just men who don't like women, but it seems to be a large majority of men who prefer to be with a woman who is not Black from the get-go.
I mean, 100%. But when they're coming to, I personally can't watch a full clip of Kevin Samuels. Like, it's just not going to happen. I've heard lots of people, including women, who have said, you know, they understand, you know, he's great, you should watch him and everything that he's saying. But for me, even when I do watch the clips, I can understand the fundamentals. But as you were talking early on about quality, I feel like he completely lacks that for me. I feel like the women that come on there, regardless of the fact they might not understand the fundamental advice he's giving them, it does not warrant being compared to sizes of pizza or compared to you know what I mean, you're the size of a shop or something like that. That is not constructive criticism to me. And I just feel like for the people that are coming on the show, I don't know how long they stay there, because as I said, I haven't watched the full episode, but from all the clips that have, and I've seen hundreds of these clips on TikTok, I feel like there's no constructive criticism there. It's just an opportunity to bash the predominantly Black women that go on there. And that is why most of his followers are low-value Black men, because they revel in it. It might not be what he's trying to do. Maybe in his mind, he actually thinks that he's helping these women, but he's just fueling the fire for what these men think of Black women anyway. You know,
I have to disagree. I have to disagree. Like I said, his comment section, they're there to beat women up. But we have to realize that Kevin's show is not even for men. That's the first thing. Kevin's show is not for men. It's for women who want high-value men and helping them understand what high-value men want and where they stack up on that. So in the beginning of our conversation, we both established that men, being highly visible, visually stimulated people, looks matter more than anything. All right. Just like to a hypergamous woman, that money matters. Okay. So if to a man, looks matter more, your level of fitness matters more, that is what's going to open the door to all of the other benefits of being with a high value man. Okay. If we can establish that, then why should we negate pointing out the fact that we have a lot of women who feel entitled to treatment that they don't rate for based on looks?
But then the men, yeah.
Because we say, yes, men are visual, and it's easy for a beautiful woman to say, yes, being beautiful is valuable, but we can't say the other side, which is if you're not a woman who has a health regime and a skincare routine, and you don't care about shopping and being fashionable and hiding your more masculine traits, if we can't tell a woman not to do those things. You know, like he'll have a woman call in that is 5'2", wearing a size 14, 200 pounds, with 2 kids, 2 different dads, and say, I want a man who makes $150,000, $250,000 a year to come sweep me on my feet, and I'm not willing to be a woman from the 40s. It makes no sense. So he has to put them in check as far as what they expect from the world. The reason why we call it average is because most of us are average, which means that average person is way more likely to meet another average person, which means with you being average, you have to understand that average is not bad, and that your average counterpart is not bad. But if you are average or below average in the sentiment of a 5'2", 200-pound, size 14, 2 kids, 2 different baby dads kind of woman, then you have to understand where you are so you can know what you can actually hunt for. I don't care if you like fried fish, baked fish, boiled fish, broiled fish. You're not going to have any fish if you don't have the right bait. So you have to.
As I said before, as I said before, the fundamentals, we all understand what he's trying to say. On my channel, on other people's channel, people are trying to get people to be the best versions of themselves in order for them to attract the best versions of themselves. But Kevin's platform, the delivery is whack. It's really whack. And I just think it's more for shock value. I totally get what you're trying to say, but I do understand the fundamentals of Kevin Samuels. But in terms of the constructive criticism, there is none. It's just an opportunity to bash the women that are on there for some likes, for some kikis, and fuel the low value men who clearly they have something in common with, because they're also the type of men that do that in the comfort of their own home, on the internet, in comment sections. So that part of his show where he is displaying his toxic masculinity, they relate to that. And some people might be going there for some genuine advice, because he might, you know, drop some ideas that actually when people can sit down and think about it, they might be able to understand the points he's trying to make. But the average person is not going on there to learn anything. The average person is going on there to see him cuss out black women. And
the average woman is going on that show to learn something. Like, he would not get 15, 20, 30,000 people watching him live every night if his advice was in sound. I think, listen, the difference between Kevin Samuels and myself is I have a professionally produced show in a studio, just me and my cameraman and my sound guy. I don't deal with live interaction. Kevin is talking to women live, okay? Which means he's dealing with the woman that wants to yell, who wants to take things personal, who wants to argue in a way that women do. Like, people handle anger differently between men and women, okay? Men have a higher propensity to jump off into physical violence. That's our masculinity, right? Which is why men will most likely be a little bit better tempered when dealing with each other, because we know the consequence of not being that way could be a punch to the face. But because women don't face that same physical threat, they express their anger through manipulation, through public humiliation, through, you know, tarnishment of you know, their perception of people around them. Women attack on a different level than what men do. And so when Kevin is confronting these women with things that are personal and dear to them, okay?
Chastising, not confronting.
Well, let's talk about toxic masculinity then. Like, tell me, what do you think toxic masculinity is?
Honestly, I think it's, you know, he definitely is an example of that. It really is. It's the demand of wanting this and wanting that, but not having the same courtesy for other people. I think he is definitely an example, as I said, but I think we should get off the Kevin Samuels topic, because
oh no, I'm off of it. But toxic masculinity is a good topic, though, because when we talk about toxic masculinity, and this is actually something I'm working on right now for a new video, toxic masculinity is usually described by one of the characteristics that you just said, that need for control, being emotionally unavailable, having a lack of sexual discipline, right? And who embodies that more than anybody today? The toxic feminist, the one who wants control. You can't name a time in history or a place in the world today where women have more power than what they have in the United States. Yet all we hear is the things that they're unhappy about. Feminism in its roots was good because it was about equality, right? Not even equality, but it was about equal rights, of wanting to have the same opportunity. Then it went from wanting to have equal rights to wanting equality. Men and women will never be equal. We have never been equal, okay?
I agree with that sentiment.
Men built the world. Men will live to the end of their days if all women disappeared right now. And that's the
And
truth.
so will women, though. So
No, they
women will
would
live
not.
to the end of the days if men didn't exist
No,
either.
they wouldn't.
People adapt and they find a way.
They find a way. So all of the electric grids are ran by men. Nuclear power plants ran by men. The grocers that bring the chicken and the beef, the butchers, men. When you don't have water, you're not going to know where to get your water. You're not going to want to touch a dead animal to cook it and clean it. And
I mean, if we need to survive, we'll do it. You know, people. I don't know about you, but my family are African. We grew up in Central Africa. In terms of sustaining themselves, women do a great job of that. Women will walk for miles to go and get water and food or whatever for their families. If the father dies, especially back in the day when the life expectancy wasn't that great, women were running villages. Women were surviving and doing everything. Maybe
if that was
in
the case,
Western
polyamory,
society,
if that was the case, polyamory wouldn't be so common in Africa. If women could do it on their alone, they wouldn't share husbands.
I mean, there's many civilizations in Africa where women have been the leaders, have been the one to. They've had matriarchal societies. I don't think it needs to turn into an argument of who's going to survive if one wasn't there without the other. I think both would do just fine without the other
because
in terms of
because
survival.
you only have 3, maybe 4 days. Remember, I'm a U.S. Marine. Okay, you only have 4 good days. 4 good days to not have food, water, and shelter before you die. That is not enough time for the majority of women to figure it out. To figure out where to get clean water.
That's more than enough time to figure it out. That's more than enough time. I said
4
that's
days?
more than enough to figure out how to do things. 4 days. How do you figure out how to collect water and food in 4 days?
Men in their upbringing are a lot more likely to have ventured off into the woods, played with sticks and mud, watched programs that teach those kinds of things, camping excursions, things like that. Men built this world as we know it. Men built it. So if you're asking how are we going to figure it out, the majority of the people who do it now, right? This is not about all men surviving. Mankind, if there were no women, we would have a surplus of food because we're not sharing it with women. We would have a surplus of clean water because it's not being shared with women. We would have a surplus of real estate because we're not buying the kind of houses that we buy to appease women, right? Men would be just fine. We know where the electricity comes from. We already run those plants. The roads would continue to get potholes filled because men do those jobs. Men do the dangerous, high-paying, mathematical, science, and engineering-based jobs. So to go back to the point earlier, where the highest demographic of people graduating from college are young women, yes, they're getting more degrees, but they're getting degrees in art history and HR.
That's not true. There's so many women that are now in the tech field, in the that are engineers. So many West Africans becoming engineers. So many people going into all different types of industries.
Is it enough? Is it enough women to support all the women in the world if all men disappeared?
Well, there's more women than men at the moment in the world, so probably.
But there are not more women in those fields. If you look at the contracting industry, just look at contracting, all right? Construction workers, mason welders, iron workers, steel workers, shipbuilders. Those industries are, in most cases, 90% or more male. So let's be generous and say it was 25% female. I know it's not, but let's just say it's 25% female. If 75% of those men were gone, do you think that 25% of women have enough time, energy, resources, and knowledge to support the entire world the way those other 75% of men who previously were there did? No, and if they could, it would take years for them to figure it out, not 4 days. And that's the sum of the conversation. So we go from wanting equal rights to equality to now they want to show that they can do more than what a man can do. And I feel like that's why men in America get that label of toxic masculinity, because we're competing to be seen as the masculine ones against our women. So that's why I like your program so much, because you're incentivizing and promoting femininity, understanding that that is an important role in a man's life. You can't expect a woman to want to get into a hypergamous relationship and expect a man to want to provide for her and to treat her like she's precious if she's acting durable, right? I have a Rolex on my wrist right now, okay? My Rolex stays in the back of my house in a lockable box, safe, because it's precious to me, because it's expensive, because it's hard to get. It took sacrifice to get it. I have a plastic bin out in the front of my house that has a puddle of water and about 3 inches of dirt on it because I never open it, because it's durable. High value men don't want durable women. We want delicate women. We don't want women that can tell us that I can survive without you. We want women that say, I'm thankful that you are helping provide my lifestyle. You understand? So when that conversation of when that ego aspect gets into it, and women can't just admit, look, let's say even if you did have the intelligence and you had the resources, right? Let's say over the next 100 years, men slowly back out of the construction field. They slowly back out of the electrical field. They slowly back out of nuclear engineering. And women slowly take over those roles. They'll have all of that knowledge and resources, but now you got to be strong enough to build it. You're going to have to be strong enough to hold rope that's 6 inches across and pull it over long spans of space and reel things that are very heavy. Even the physical dominance is undermined with today's modern woman. So in order for hypergamy to really exist and for a woman to really be able to sit in her femininity, she has to be able to acknowledge and understand that her man is not her equal, because he's not. He's not her equal. And because she understands that, she'll reap all of the benefits. She'll have that man who is not her equal give her everything that she wants. The only time she'll feel bad about being in that position is when she gets around her girlfriends. And when they go to brunch and all of her, because like we said, to get a high value man, the chances are a lot lower. In America, only 10% of all men make $100,000 a year or more. When you talk about black men, only 8%. So the chances of actually getting one of these men is really, really low, which means you are going to most likely be the only one in your familial circle that has a man on that level. And when you go to brunch together and all of these girls are talking about their wig businesses that they started online and how things are going at work and how they scraped and scratched to make the money that they make, and you get to say, as you look in your Birkin bag for your makeup brush to put on your $100 makeup, I didn't have to work for any of that. My high value man got that for me. Now, because they're jealous, they're going to try to make her feel bad. Oh, girl, but what about your own mind and your own life and your own effort? You could do it on your own. They're going to try to lift themselves up because they work, because they're measuring themselves with the same measuring stick that they measure men with. But let me tell you something. When they get up from brunch and she puts on her coat that her man bought for her and gets to her car that her man bought for her and goes home with a smile on her face with no stress from a job, those women are going to get in their mid-sized cars, their Civics and their Accords, or maybe a C-Class Mercedes, and they're going to all be thinking, I don't know if her connection dropped or what. Hopefully she'll come back in. Let's see. No, she didn't cut me off. I think her signal just went bad. She's way too classy to just cut it off. I know her personally. Um, hmm. Well, folks, what it looks like is the live is going to have to end here because I can't request her. This was her live, but
I would like to thank everybody for joining. This was a fun conversation. I'm sure we're going to pick it up again soon, maybe do a round two. Everything I say comes from a place of love. I want us to be married. I want us to be together, but there has to be an understanding of roles in order for this to happen. Women can't say that they want a high-value man and they believe hypergamy and all of those things and still rant about the things that they can do that men can do, because we're not equal. And I stand on that. So